The concept of community-oriented policing is a basic one. To increase cooperation between police and citizens, get them to know each other, appreciate each other's concerns and problems, understand the fight against crime is one police can't do alone.
What you're doing is you're working with the representatives of the city, the Milwaukee Police Department personnel, and the residents to address problems and quality of life issues and crime issues that affect neighborhoods.
More communication that there is, both from the neighborhood level and from the police department level, the better people will understand why decisions and procedures are done in the way that they are.
A major component of Milwaukee's community policing involves neighborhood offices like the Avenues West substation. You can't pay a ticket here or get a parking permit, but you can report crimes and concerns and get to know the officers who work in the neighborhood. Other examples include the satellite office at Capitol Court Shopping Center, the Metcalf Park area where officers work out of a former home, and there are a number of other community outreach offices, each designed to meet specific needs.
Problems are not static, they're not the same throughout the entire city of Milwaukee. And every neighborhood has different problems. So we have to address those problems. We have to tailor our services and our service delivery to address those problems, to reduce or remove those problems.
Neighborhood concerns can range from crime prevention to graffiti, gangs to drug houses. Thousands of block watches and block clubs have been formed with the help of police. Neighbors watch out for each other, call police when something looks unusual.
People feel more comfortable as a rule talking with their neighbors, at least in the beginning. You know, that's where they begin to learn and identify things that are of a concern to them, and they find that maybe it's a concern to somebody who lives down the block as well.
The nightly Neighbors Watch program is another example of police-community cooperation. There are now 4 of them, not acting as police but reporting unusual, unsafe, and suspicious activities.
It's kind of like a mobile version of a block watch where the neighbors watch out for each other. This one's a little bit bigger in scope where you're watching out for your entire neighborhood. Anytime that you get people involved in what's going on in the neighborhood, that only benefits the police. People end up being trained as better observers, and even when they're not on patrol, they pay more attention to what's going on their own block or in other parts of the neighborhood. As far as the other benefits, people who are walking out on the street appreciate having the mobile watch cars go by. That makes them feel safer. They know that people are watching out for them.
In another initiative, district police captains meet regularly with community organizations, such as the 3rd District Community Safety Coalition. All the concerns of the Sherman Park area resident groups haven't been resolved, but they support community policing and want to see it improved.
We want to make sure that it does impact as far as assisting the residents in the 3rd District to have better police in the area, better policing in the area, let the residents feel safer. We want to improve on a whole lot of things to make the residents feel better here in this area.
One issue that's been very important to the coalition has been the more foot patrol officers in the community, and foot patrol officers that stay in the community, not get rotated on a regular basis. No one's contending that the so-called hot spots where crime might be higher than in other areas don't need additional police officers, but we feel it defeated the purpose of getting the officers to know the community, become familiar with the residents.
One major concern here is that not everyone is committed to the community policing philosophy, that residents and police must accept the concept for it to succeed.
All of us know here, who are within the community, that it has to be in your heart. It has to be in your heart. Some of the foot officers that need to participate more in attending meetings, CBO meetings, meetings with community groups, because that's where the heart of the problem lies. And as soon as you merge these two groups together, you have a fascinating and very dynamic force to work for the community and make the residents' lives more better.
Merchants also worry about things like crime, gangs, graffiti, and loitering. Members of the 27th Street Business Association meet periodically with police. Saying they are active partners in the community, the officers encourage the merchants to call them when they notice unusual behavior or activity.
The most important calls at the district level are those calls about things changing in the neighborhood. Because if the officers aren't aware of those changes, we can't address them.
As citizens, business owners, we're the eyes and ears, and if the police department isn't contacted, they just can't respond to what's going on.
Other police community initiatives include National Night Out, bike patrols and foot patrols that make it easier for police to interact with residents, more diversity training for new recruits, more attention to police-community relations on entrance and promotional exams. The department says it will continue to work with all citizens to address common concerns. There are some problems, there have been some criticisms, but there is hope.
Oh, I think there's no doubt that there is progress, and certainly people's attitudes are changing towards the police and understanding the kinds of decisions and procedures that have to be done. We have many more challenges ahead of us. Living in a city in an urban setting presents lots of opportunities for improvement.
I would say through my observation that it is becoming more and more positive each day. However, it takes the efforts of all of us. It isn't just, when you have a philosophy, you must work that philosophy to make it true. And it doesn't just happen, you just can't make it be ordered, and you just can't wake up the next day and hope that everything's going to be okay. All of us got to work together, and we're ready for it.
And it's all about partnership. Isn't that beautiful? That's wonderful. But the getting the individuals, whether it's residents to partner with the police or police to feel they're a partner with the community and residents, that is where the real problems and challenges come in.
Lift every voice and sing till earth and heaven ring.
It was the 13th annual celebration of Martin Luther King's life and work. Dr. King once said if he was to be called a drum major, to say he was a drum major for peace, and that was the theme for this year. Students from throughout the city were honored for what they did to interpret the theme, which included art, writing, and speech.
Dr. King, I'm carrying your baton so we all can march in peace together. We all must be drum majors for peace. Marching for peace! Marching for peace! March, march, march. I am a drum major for peace because peace is important to me. Did you know peace is a powerful thing? Peace is when all races can work together, listen to each other, and respect all living things.
Much violence is going on today. Everywhere you turn, people are getting killed. Innocent people. People getting killed for their clothes that they buy. And most of all, just getting mad at someone and killing them. If we want to be drum majors for peace, we need to make a U-turn and start getting our act together.
This is only one of many activities in Milwaukee that applaud the history and contributions of African Americans. The Wisconsin Black Historical Society prides itself on offering a piece of African American history all year long. The city provided the building, the former Center Street Library. A one-time community development grant helped with the renovation. Claiborne Benson founded the museum in 1987.
Every race sees their history as very, very important and the honoring of their ancestors. That's what Wisconsin's about. Wisconsin Black Historical Society is about, is preserving its history and its culture.
Large panels give a panoramic view of African American history from ancient Egypt to early settlers in rural Wisconsin to more modern times in Milwaukee. Another exhibit gives a personal look at the African American community in Milwaukee in the 1930s and 40s. The philosophy here is that any study of black history begins with a look in the mirror.
You'll learn that your family ancestor experienced every aspect of history as anybody else that you may consider honoring. You'll learn that they have endured struggles, they have made sacrifices, all for you in a sense. And all of it weighs on your shoulders to think about what they have done on your behalf. You then have to begin to think about what are you going to do for the future, for your children's, but not only your children, your children's children. It gives us this business of understanding our own personal history. We learn about the accomplishments of great leaders in the process of it.
The Atkinson Library, like others in the city, has a wealth of materials year-round which deal with African American history and culture. It's also home to a unique permanent exhibit created by local artist Gerald Wayne Coleman. The large textile panels depict African American history from the story recounted in the Roots TV series to a West African kingdom of Benin,
which was a point of departure for many African slaves during the European slave trade to the Americas. If you look at the African panel, there are a lot of natural fibers. It depicts the royal house of Benin, the king. There are uses of mirrors, raffia grass, natural fiber to really depict and give a feeling of West Africa in a tropical country. Then when you move into African American panel of roots, you have the impact of Christianity, slavery, an abolitionist, someone who is moving out of slavery, someone who's moving up to the stars to have a higher quality of life or living.
The distinctive panels were inspired by Coleman's many trips to Africa and his own studies of African American history.
Well, it's important because, you know, the old saying that until you know where you came from, you can't know where you're going. It's a good reminder of the patchwork quilt that makes up the American society.
Libraries, museums, commemorations, all ways of passing on information, whether it be African American history and cultural heritage or a message of peace.
Tomorrow must be different. All tomorrows must be different. If you are a drum major for peace, each day is a new beginning. Every day is made special by what we bring to it.
And I ask you, being citizens of this great nation and of this community, will you become the drum major for peace in your life, or the conductor of destructive selfishness?
Let us march on till victory is won.
The Northwest Health Center is the focal point of the Milwaukee Blood Pressure Program, now also known as the Cardiovascular Risk Reduction Program. The change in name reflects a change in direction.
We mostly did just blood pressure screening, referral, and advocacy, but we now have changed our focus and to include the goals of cardiovascular risk reduction education, because we want to get people into the mode of getting back into prevention, doing something in their lives earlier to reduce cardiovascular deaths and mortality.
About 12,000 people a year take advantage of the free blood pressure screening programs offered by the Milwaukee Health Department. That includes this center and the volunteer help of about 24 Central City churches, community groups, and other health providers. Everyone has blood pressure. If we didn't, blood would be unable to move through our bodies, delivering oxygen and nutrients and eliminating waste. The heart works as a nonstop pump, pushing blood under pressure through a long and complex network of blood vessels. The force of that blood against the vessel walls is called blood pressure. What then is high blood pressure?
The mechanism of high blood pressure is similar to what happens to water in a garden hose. When the vessels are open, blood flows freely. But when the channel is narrowed, pressure builds up, just as water pressure builds when the nozzle of a garden hose is closed. As the channel becomes smaller, the heart must work harder to pump the blood through the narrowed vessels. Because the heart is working harder, the muscle walls become larger and stronger at first, But because the heart cannot meet the constant demand to pump with more force, muscle tissue becomes overstretched and weak, and eventually the heart may fail.
It is normal for pressure to go up and down throughout the day depending on activities and emotions. While high blood pressure is also known as hypertension, it has nothing to do with personality.
Well, we're really referring to tension in the blood vessels, not the type of tension that we all feel from day to day. If you have normal blood pressure, you're said to be normotensive. If you have high blood pressure, you're said to be hypertensive. But no relationship between personality and who's going to get high blood pressure.
So who is at risk, and what is normal? No one blood pressure is normal for everyone. Your own lifestyle, background, age, and overall health can all make a difference. Some lifestyle factors are changeable, some are not.
So one has to really sit down and take a serious look at some of their family background, their medical history. Is there high blood pressure in the family? Things like age, race, sex, and heredity are uncontrollable risk factors, things we can't really do anything about, but we need to be aware of these things, certainly if it's in the family. And then on a more personal side, what about my own self? Okay, taking a look at things like weight and in relation to that, how diet correlates to that, fat and salt intake, my level of physical fitness, how well I manage stress from day to day, do I smoke, use of alcohol, any kinds of things like that. And for those people that are on medication then, is it the right medication for me? Is it doing the job it's supposed to be doing? Just regular follow-up with that to make sure we're getting the best control possible.
We really want to touch base with everybody in the community, the general community, because everybody is at risk for cardiovascular disease. But specifically, the target population, I would still say, is African American black men, because they're at the low end of the spectrum and some of the ones that are hardest to get into medical care.
Blood pressure consists of two numbers. The higher number, or systolic pressure, taken as the heart squeezes to pump blood. The lower number, or diastolic pressure, when the heart relaxes. The desirable level for adults is a systolic reading of less than 130, a diastolic reading less than 85. Higher readings are rated as high normal, high risk, and severe risk. A diagnosis for high blood pressure is made when a series of readings are consistently above the normal level. Recommendations can range from retesting at regular intervals to immediate medical care. If readings are abnormal, the health department offers a number of follow-up services.
What we've done is develop a medical resource sheet which lists medical sites which we can refer people to, whether they're uninsured, underinsured, or even if they have a medical coverage but they just don't know where to go for medical care, we will then be an advocate to get them into the proper medical care facility.
The program wouldn't work without the help of volunteers who provide critical, screening, clerical, and other services at the many sites in the city. Screeners are certified by the American Heart Association.
Volunteers play a major role in our program here. You'll see hospitals and other clinics throughout the country that have similar type programs, but I think we're kind of unique here in that most of what we do is with volunteer assistance. And those volunteers can be lay people who just have a genuine interest in the topic of high blood pressure, or it can be professional people. We have a variety of folks there.
If you don't really know what your blood pressure is, you can be at risk for stroke, heart attacks. You can even have visual problems from high blood pressure. Because as you know, high blood pressure has silent symptoms. And that's why it's important to learn all you can about cardiovascular health and to have your blood pressure screened regularly.
Whether you own a large home, a modest bungalow, or any other type of property, you pay property taxes. State law requires that you are treated equally so that all property owners pay their fair share.
State law says legally we're only required to send a notice if the assessment increases more than $300, but as a matter of public information, we send everybody a notice so they know what their assessment is.
Taxes, of course, are the main worry of many of those whose homes are revalued. However, individual tax bills do not necessarily go up as a result of the revaluation. What if you don't agree with the assessment? don't believe you could sell your house at the price put on it by the city. You can appeal. The first step, stop in or call the assessor's office at City Hall. Meet with staff members. Check assessments on other homes in your neighborhood. Ask for an explanation of how the number was computed. Present your evidence. City assessment rolls and information on recent sales of comparable homes are available.
Just by giving us a call or coming in to visit us, we can often clear up misunderstandings or questions that they may have about the assessment. After they do that, if they still think that the assessment is just not correct, there are appeal procedures.
Those appeal procedures begin with the filing of a written formal objection. It must be done by the third Monday in May. If a review by a group of appraisal supervisors does not resolve the dispute, the next step is this group, the Milwaukee Board of Tax Review. 5 citizens appointed by the mayor, confirmed by the Common Council. They may not hold any public office or be publicly employed. They meet throughout the year with hearing dates dependent on the number of appeals. The board reviews objections, conducts hearings, and, if appropriate, can change the assessment valuation. Board members say they listen to the taxpayer with an open mind.
And he comes before a board made up of his peers, I suppose. We all are taxpayers, and we have just about the same concern. And so I think it's very important to have a board of review, a group that's impartial.
What evidence should you present? Again, the assessor's office can provide information on how to prepare for the hearing. The critical question always is, what is the fair market value of the property? Like the assessor, you must bring in information you believe will prove your argument. The board is not the appropriate place to complain about the amount of your property tax.
Tax assessor, appraiser, and the taxpayer, they both should come with evidence. Just talk and accusations, that's not evidence. So we try to look for solid evidence.
And if you don't agree with the Board of Review decision, the next step is an appeal to Circuit Court. The assessment process isn't always understood by the general public, so the assessor's office stands ready to help with your questions. Their number is 286-3651.